Are you starting a cut flower farm and you're wondering, how do I make the plant spacing templates to burn my landscape fabric in the correct spacing consistently for my rows? Well, I had the same question, and in this video I'm going to tackle that project and then I'll show you the materials and spacing I used for my templates. Hello! Welcome to the flower shed. So today I'm out at the farm. It is just beautifully brisk, 39 and blustery, kind of miserable to be outside. I have multiple layers on, but we are so close to being able to get our first seed starts and direct seeded plants started in the garden, not just from a timeline perspective, because it's about that time of year. We're getting close enough to our last frost date, which is actually not until May, and right now it is March 26th. But also because we've had to do this year, as a first year flower farm, the work of raising our beds. We are not making raised beds, which I know some people do, but when I say raising the beds, I just mean like creating the bed layout in the field that we're using, which is a 1/4 of an acre. So not really a field, more just a back section of my grandparents' backyard. So the project today is to make templates to burn landscape fabric in the 4 spacings that we're going to be using for our planting rows. Those spacings are 12 inches, 9 inches, 6 inches, and 4 inches. We'll see if I get around to making that one because it's like 90 holes. But I'm started, so let's talk about this. First, materials. I picked up this 2x4 piece of pine plywood. It was literally the cheapest piece they had, so I went with it. I chose this one, like I said, because it was the cheapest piece they had, but also because it was 4 feet long, which is the width of our rows, and because it was pre-cut to the 2-foot length, meaning I can make a template. Well, first of all, I could fit it in my car, essential. Second of all, I can make a template for 2 feet, and then I can just flip it over and continually burn that template down the landscape fabric and get something really consistent. So I have now covered it with craft paper, which, again, I don't know if this is the best step, but my thought is to do all of my measurements on the craft paper, and then I have a drill bit. Pause. I have a drill bit that is 3.5 inches, so it's gonna make a big old hole. And it's already, so when I talked to the guy at Lowe's, he was like, you need to make sure you get the one with the hex shank attached so that it has a connector to fit into your drills, because the ones that I was originally looking at didn't have that piece and I would have had to buy it separately. So just something good to know. I have no idea if other people are using a 3.5 inch hole size. Have not found that information anywhere. When it comes to the templates, this is a real rough sketch. So for the 12-inch template, I used a plant spacing calculator online. We'll be planting in the triangle format instead of just in straight rows, because that helps you maximize space. And the planting spacer online told me that I need to do 5 rows, 10 inches apart, 3 holes in the odd rows, and 2 holes in the even rows for my 12-inch template. So that's the first one I'm attempting because it's the fewest holes. And yeah, I think that's all the background. Let's just get back to work. The instructions say draw 5 lines 10.39 inches apart. And when I first looked at that, I was like, that's 5 lines 10 inches apart is 50 inches. That's not gonna fit on a 48-inch board. Okay, so I got myself confused there. But when I went back and drew the midline, or at the 2-foot mark in the board, and then I simply just went to the left and drew another line about 10.5 inches out, and then I drew another line 10 inches out, that fit. So now here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, 10 inches apart. Progress. And so now I'm going to do 3 holes on the first, 2 on the second, 3 on the 3rd, 2 on the 4th, 3 on the 5th. They're all, you know, it's gonna be a triangle. You'll see, just keep watching. Okay, so I've drawn little circles where I'm gonna cut through the plywood. See, this line has 2 circles, this line has 3 circles, but the thing that I'm looking for is that the center of that plant, the center of this plant is about 12 inches. And guys, it's pretty close. I'm quite pleased with that, so let's keep going. Okay, I'm on to my 6-inch template. I've done 12 inches and 9 inches. The thing about the 12-inch and the 9-inch is that they both need an odd number of rows horizontally, so you can just use the center point and create the rows out from that, and that gives you the right spacing. For the 6-inch template, it wants an even number of rows horizontally, so using the center point won't work. But what I've done is taken the amount of spacing that I want between the rows. So I know I have 10 rows. I did 9 spaces times the amount of spacing, which was 5. So that gives me 45 inches, which means I have 3 inches of give on either side. So I divided that in half to get the single side give, which is so 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So I'm starting my first row at the 1.5 point and then going 5 inches across, and that gives me spacing for 10 rows across the board. I don't know, if someone explained that to me, I don't know that I would understand it, but now that I'm doing it, I'm like, I got it.
Once you have all of your templates drawn, the next step is to take them outside and cut out the holes with your 3-inch drill bit. A couple of notes here. I do recommend drawing the templates directly onto the plywood and not using craft paper. I did that for the 9-inch, 6-inch, and 4-inch templates and found that it was much easier to use the drill bit when I didn't have to cut through craft paper and plywood. Also, I mentioned I bought a 3.5-inch drill bit, but I would recommend getting a 3-inch drill bit, as the 3.5-inch drill bit really is too big for the smaller spacing templates, so the 6-inch and the 4-inch. You could get a 3.5-inch drill bit, but you might also need to buy a 2.5 to make those smaller sizes work.
Back in my office, and I want to show you the templates that you can use to recreate this project, because as I was doing it,
I was doing the measurements on the fly, but I wrote them all down into notes and I've laid them out in a PowerPoint so that you should just be able to get the materials, use the templates to draw your measurements, and go straight to cutting, which will save you an hour at least. If you're me, multiple hours. So let's look at the first template. So here we're looking at the 12-inch spacing template for a triangular grid, and a couple of things to point out here. So you're seeing the outline of the 2x4 piece of plywood. I've got it laid down in front of you horizontally, so the longest side should be horizontal, meaning it's 2 feet long and 4 feet wide. Then from there, the first step is to draw your rows, which are also the horizontal rows, and the measurements for those go across the bottom. So on this one it's 3 inches, 13.5 inches, 24 inches, 34.5 inches, and 45 inches, and that will give you your 5 rows. Draw those starting from the left side of your piece of plywood. The next step will be to draw on the plant spacing, so that's represented by the black and red dots. The measurements for each row's plant spacing is in the corresponding colors on the horizontal axis. You can see the first row's plant spacing is in black, and it's 2 inches, 12 inches, and 22 inches. The second row's plant spacing is 6 inches and 17 inches, and that repeats, and that is measured from the top of the piece of the plywood to the hole. So I've also created this same layout for a 9-inch spacing, and the same rules apply for where you should start your measurements. So when you're starting the rows, start from the left side, work your way over, the measurements are across the bottom. When you're placing the plant holes, start from the top and measure down, and the measurements are across the left hand side. And for the 12 and 9-inch spacings, I would say you could get away with a 3-inch drill bit. For the 6-inch spacing, it looks really clustered on here, but I think in real life you'll see here's my actual 6-inch outline, but I think you'd probably be better off using a 2.5-inch, maybe even a 2-inch drill bit if you're comfortable going down to that size. The final thing I'll note is that the visuals are not to scale, but the measurements should be correct. Let me know if you found this helpful or if you have any corrections or another way to do it. This was one of those projects that's not that hard to tackle, but it was kind of confusing for me to conceptually wrap my mind around how I was going to do the spacing calculations. Now that I have it, I just feel like everyone should have it because it is not hard.